Day one of Cowboys OTAs today. Day two tomorrow. Brian Broaddus is going to be there along with the assembled Cowboys media. Bobby Belt will be there. David Hellman. And we'll have big doings tomorrow. But my question right here for you guys is more big picture. And the truckwreck.com fan text is open. What do you need to see develop in the next 3 months? Right? You have a couple of weeks of OTAs here. Then we'll have the down period, and then we're going to have training camp start and wrap up, late in August. Before the season starts, what would make you believe at 877-881-1053? They've lost 3 players, so I think most people are thinking, for whatever reason, this is a half step back year. Either they messed up or they're intentionally getting their house back in order financially, getting their cap in order before they make their next big push. But this season is kind of feeling like a building year or we'd like to win, but we're not really shoving all of our chips into the middle to win type of year. I'm not saying they're going to be bad. I'm not saying they're rebuilding, but I don't think the front office has team built this offseason in a way that would give you confidence. What would make that change to where you'd be sauntering into week one against Tampa totally crotch first, Wooly Bully?
I would say, and again, this is going to be one of those things where I don't know that we're even going to know this 100% until we see them play for a full 60-minute NFL game against a legit opponent. So we won't really know 100% where we're at until week one, but we'll have a better idea after training camp and maybe a couple of preseason games, but it's how is this offensive line looking, right? For me, this is all going to come down to the offensive line. That is what was falling apart at the end of last year. That is what completely had this offense imploding. And, I've talked about this at points throughout the entire offseason. We can go ahead and be won over by the sexiness that is the receiver position, running backs, and we can talk and we can bitch and moan about, Dalton Schultz getting franchise tagged, whatever it is, and Dak and his play. And certainly it does all come down to the quarterback in the NFL. But it's all about winning in the trenches and the offensive and defensive lines. And the Cowboys' offensive line was cracking and leaking at a multitude of different levels, and it was failing them towards the end of last year, and they got completely bullied up front, and that's why they lost to the San Francisco 49ers wild card weekend.
Yeah, you could have a cracking situation. You can sometimes get away with a leaking situation, but when you combine the two and you have a cracking and a leaking, you're pretty much doomed for collapse.
There's no way to plug those holes,
tough.
Right? So how does Tyler Smith look? Does Terrence Steele evolve? And we saw him make a giant leap that all of us were shocked by from year 1 to year 2. Does he take another step from year 2 to year 3? So now we're like, okay, now we've got ours. I can see why they moved on from LC. This makes sense. I understand why the heads in that organization and inside the Star in Frisco were thinking, okay, we've got ourselves a much cheaper version in Terrence Steele that really the drop-off in play, not much at all here. This guy can be a pretty good right tackle at the NFL level. Who is your starting center? Is it Tyler Biadasz? Does he get better? Does he learn how to make calls and read defenses and help out his quarterback? Or is it Matt Farniok? Is it Alec Lindstrom, who comes in and is another undrafted rookie free agent that overperforms and makes this team and ends up earning that starting spot out of Boston College? Is Tyron Smith healthy? I think it all comes down to the offensive line.
I mean, there's so many question marks, Wooly Bully. If we can just get 2 positives, I'll be stoked. Whether it's Biadasz being a lot better and stronger, or the young guy being able to handle it, or Terrence Steele taking another big step up at right tackle. But to me, it comes down to the rookie Tyler Smith. And when we went and covered training camp 8 years ago, when Zach Martin was a rookie, you saw it immediately in Oxnard. That's why I don't think we have to wait until week 1 of the regular season. Jason Garrett and Scott Linehan and the old offensive coaches used to love having pass rush one-on-ones. And I don't know how much we'll get it, but we'll get an opportunity to evaluate Tyler Smith. And what becomes very clear with the offensive linemen who are ready to come in physically and technique-wise and be a factor is they stonewall even veteran defensive linemen. Like, that's what Zach did. Travis and Tyron did it to a lesser extent. But if you can give me something to believe in Tyler Smith and a healthy Tyron Smith, right? Give me those two things with no interruptions from Tyron. No, he tweaked his back. The neck's acting up, something like that. Give me a sign throughout the entire month of August that Tyron Smith can be healthy, and then I can start imagining, because I'm right there with you on the offensive line. I think they must have a running game. You must punish the defense for sitting on the Dak passing game, or it's going to be a very frustrating 3rd and long type of season.
Okay, so I'm agreeing with everything you guys are saying right now. I think we all have to understand it's going to be tough to full on believe until you get to the season. But if you're trying to just find things to piece together some confidence going into the season, I love everything you guys said. When it comes to the players, I think the offensive line, the defensive line, that's going to matter a ton, especially the offensive line. Now, how crisp is Dak when we get out to Oxnard? How consistently is he going? Like, you're not having volatile practices. And I know Dak's not necessarily known for being the best practice quarterback per se. He's more of a gamer. And I also understand that in training camp, you're trying different things. You may get more risky on certain throws and stuff like that just because you know it's practice and throwing the interception doesn't actually matter. But like looking at Dak and being like, okay, this dude is clearly healthy and he's accurate, he's crisp, and he's rocking and he's rolling. I think the other thing, though, that I'm desperate to see in Oxnard, and maybe you'll see a little bit in OTAs as well, and Walchuk and I are going to be out there with Broadus as well tomorrow as well, so that's going to be a good time.
Right on.
But how schematically, how does it change offensively? What is Kellen Moore doing? What have they actually tweaked here? Because that's going to be a big thing as well. Like, we can't forget, we talk about the players constantly, but the coaching staff offensively was a problem. They've talked about how they've gone to the drawing board and they're looking to implement new things. And what does that look like? Are we starting to have an offense that resembled a little bit more of a Kyle Shanahan or a McSex or just one of these guys who offensively is head and shoulders above the rest? Is Kellen Moore adapting in that way? Are we seeing interesting usages from their best playmakers like a Tony Pollard, like a CeeDee Lamb, who we were talking about earlier? How does the offense look, and how does it look a little bit different? Hopefully, it looks quite a bit different.
Yeah, I still feel like they got plenty of talent. Kellen Moore massively mismanaged it.
Agreed.
And maybe he'll have some better answers. 214, on a positive note, I think Dan Quinn is building something special on defense. Okay, yes, that could be nice. You know, what could give you confidence? What if Sam Williams or Dante Fowler's looking like a banshee on the edge?
Absolutely.
You know, those are the kind of things. What if you got a healthy Malik Hooker flashing his ceiling and upside?
Yeah. You know, last year, Jaron Kearse came out of nowhere, was an absolute stud. It'd be nice if Dante Fowler was that kind of home run for you.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that
Leighton Vander Esch hitting his peak.
Leighton Vander Esch on a 1-year cheap deal, you know, that'd be fantastic. Another thing that would get me excited, because I do have high expectations for him because I love the pick and I liked him coming out of college. If we see Jabril Cox looking good at training camp.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
You know, if we see him looking good coming off of that injury and we're not worried about it, I think that would ease a lot of our concerns about that linebacker position.
And how about the idea of, especially when you get to Oxnard, Trayvon Diggs looking like nobody can win against this guy. Like, it's not just the interceptions, but okay, now it's like, dude, you're locking up an entire one side of the field.
100%, right? Because this offseason, I haven't seen these Twitter people are crushing Trayvon Diggs about all the amount of yards he's given up. You know, it's the first time in how many years? 30 years we've seen a corner have 11 interceptions. This is the first time I've seen people bitching about how many yards a corner gave up. Okay, so give or take, what would you rather have? I think I'd much rather have the turnovers.
I would, but I tell you what, I do see some common ground with me and those people, because you can't predict the turnovers are going to happen the following year.
You can't, but he does seem like a guy that has a knack for finding the ball. The ball skills are something that he is a former wide receiver.
Yeah.
So that is something you liked about him and was a trait of his that, he does have those skills for you. So
how many takeaways do you think he averages over the next 5 years?
I think it's safe to say, I think the floor is 5.
Floor is 5.
The floor should be, I think, a minimum of 5. And that's a lot when you think about these Cowboys corners.
Yeah, like 7 or 8 interceptions is going to lead the league again. So it's maybe even 6. Like 5 or 6 is a huge number, and I don't know. I think if he averages that, I will be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's about what a regular season. So if you continue to give up like 1,000 yards and you're only getting 5 picks as opposed to 11 interceptions, would you still feel the same way?
I mean, certainly you wouldn't feel as good about it, but I think that that's also an area he's going to improve in. Like the thing with Diggs is, as I mentioned, at Alabama was where he made that transition to corner. So you still got to remember that he's relatively raw and new at the position. So for him to now be, okay, he was a second-round pick, borderline first-round talent at the corner position. He's going into now year 3. He already led the league in interceptions and was an all-pro corner. I just think he's going to continue to get better.